Hi and welcome to another gaming video, and in today's video I'm showing off my latest finished project, and it's another GameBoy Macro made from a DS Lite, and here it is, a lovely black two-tone kind of macro. I think it looks absolutely stunning. I love the red accents. You got your red D-pad, your red A and B buttons, because you only need two buttons to play Game Boy Advance games, but I left the other ones up there in black. Start and selector in red, but also your power button, your volume button, and some shoulder buttons. They are red as well, and I think it really looks nice. I've made a few of these in the past, some rush jobs. This one I took my time. I wanted it to look nice when it was finished. I didn't really do any case modification. Apart from on the inside, I took some of the legs off of the inside to give it a bit more room in there. And I've done no soldering, so there is no resistor in here. There is no pad underneath to bridge those 2 points. I've used the light bar method again, which I always use, which, you take the screen cable that would go to the top screen, you dismantle the top screen and take the cable out along with the little light bar, and you carefully fold it and flatten it underneath the bottom screen, position it so it kind of goes that way, I think, so it bypasses the buttons. It's a little tight, but it works, and it's a very easy method. You do just have to make sure it doesn't interfere with that button, and there you go. So I documented the entire process, which I am now going to show. It took about 3 or 4 hours. Here it is. So the first thing you need to do is remove the battery door along with the battery, and then you can start undoing the screws. You also need to remove the stylus, but undo the screws from the back of the console. Some of them are quite deep, some of them are regular Phillips screws, but you will need a tri-wing for some of those. Don't forget the little black one where the DS cartridge slot is. There's two hidden underneath some rubber pads, so you can take them out, and then you should be able to work the back case off as long as you've taken all of the screws out. I missed one, I think. Yep. And then it should just pull off. Be very careful when you take it off, because the shoulder buttons will spring, and you don't want to lose the spring or the arms. There is a black cable and a white cable and a BIOS chip. Remove those. You don't need the black or white cable for this project. Feed the black cable underneath the DS slot. It can be a little tricky to get out. And I've got one screw holding my motherboard in. Then you can lift it up. There is a little cable here. This is the digitizer cable, so disconnect that. You don't actually need that for this project. And just wiggle it and push the screen, and you'll be able to get it out. So the next thing you need to do is just make sure you don't lose any of your buttons that fall out. Undo the clasp for the top screen, and that's it. Take off the bottom screen, and then you can start separating, because you don't need the digitizer for a Game Boy Advance, because that's what gives it its touch capabilities. So you can start separating that, but be very careful, because you do need the actual screen itself. So peel that off and keep that, make that nice and clean. Then we turn our attention to the other half. Undo the hinge cover, and you should be able to start sliding that out. Right, be very careful with this cable. This is the cable that you need for this project. The other two cables you don't need, the white one and the black one. Right, you do need to disassemble the top half of the screen for this project, so take off the little screw covers. Can be a little tricky. It doesn't matter if you mess them up, you don't need them. And undo the 4 screws that are holding the two halves of the top screen together. Slide it one way, and then you should be able to take that off. Now be very careful here. You don't want to lose anything, so you can pop the screen out, and you can remove these white and black cables. The white cable is for the microphone, you don't need that. The black cable is for the Wi-Fi chip. So then you can start dismantling the screen. You do need the cable in the screen. Take off the short speaker, you don't need that. Very carefully roll up and feed the cable through the hinge, and then start dismantling it. So you can take off this sort of lens off the front, keep hold of that, and then you need to start taking apart the metal pieces of the top screen. Can be a bit tricky. There's quite a few layers to this that come off, so just peel and be very careful not to rip any of the ribbon cables. As you can see, that there are about 6 or 7 elements to this top screen. So just keep going, taking it apart, and then you'll see the light bar. Now this is this ribbon here, or this cable here, and that is the most important part of this mod, so do not damage that. And once the cable is free, I had a bit of a sort of backing on the back of mine. I tried to get as much of it off as I could, but I didn't want to damage this light bar. So I ended up just leaving whatever was left on there. So the next thing is to start putting it back together. So you can pop your bottom screen in and latch it down, and then pop in the top screen cable and latch that down. Now I just went for a bit of a test, so it won't come on because I didn't put the BIOS chip on, so put that on, and you should be able to switch it on, and there you go. You'll see something on the screen, you'll see the light bar lighting up there, so everything was good. So let's start putting this back together. So I'm going to remove the stylus housing, that gives you a bit more room inside there, and I'm going to start sort of trimming off some of the internal legs. It just gives you a bit more space to fit the cables and the speakers in the bottom half. I used a Dremel to sort of cut it and then just sort of grind it off. It doesn't really need to be perfect. You're not going to see it. It is underneath, but it just does give you a little bit more breathing room when you're trying to fit everything back in the bottom half of the case, because you're putting a cable and a speaker in which should have been in the top case. So just tidy that up. It's not essential, but it does just make the job a little easier. So just clear up your mess. I marked out some speaker holes. Well, I tried to mark out some speaker holes because that is where the speaker placement is going to be, and you need to let the sound come through the bottom of the case. This is not my finest moment. I probably shouldn't have used a Dremel or the tool that I was using. I normally heat up like a needle and put small holes in, but I decided to put some larger holes in, and well, it works, but it's not ideal. It's not the prettiest method of doing it. So take out Well, now I'm going to start putting the buttons back in, and I went for this two-tone kind of colour. I think I accidentally put in the buttons in the wrong place, so swap them round. So I've gone for this red and black look. Had a bit of trouble working out where buttons should go. So I've got a red power button and a red volume button. Then we turn our attention to, well, the cable placement. So this is the part of the mod that is a little bit tricky. So you've got cable on top of bare board. So I do like to cover as much of it as I can in Captain tape, which is like an electrical safety tape. It shouldn't allow current to go through, and it's just a bit of a protective measure. It's not the stickiest, so it's all right for putting things down, but it won't hold them fully. This is probably the trickiest part of the mod, is to getting that cable in the right place so that it doesn't interfere with any of the buttons. You don't want it to interfere with the D-pad or the shoulder button. So get it as flat as possible, especially that where it comes out of the connector at the top. Feed your speaker where you need it. We'll put that in place in a bit. And then I just sort of started taping it down, just to hold it in place, really. It's not the most prettiest of jobs, but unless you're using a clear case, you're not going to see the insides anyway. So that is where I put my cable, and I've done this before. It doesn't interfere with anything. That's pretty much it. So then we pop the screen back on. This is the bottom screen. Give it another test to make sure I haven't messed anything up. A little tricky to hold it all together, so that works fine. Then we can start putting it back together. So I decided to use a Delrin rod to go across there. We'll look at that in a minute. So I've now put in my buttons back in, and I've gone for a red and black combo. So I wanted the A and B button to be red because they're the buttons that you use. Make sure you get them in the right place, although they should only fit in their respective holes. And then I popped in the black X and Y because you don't need them, and I didn't want to do any case modification. So put your rubbers on, and you should be good to go. You can then put your motherboard in your case. Make sure it is clipped in and clicked down. It will be a little tight. Feed your speaker around the DS card slot because that is pretty much where your speaker is going to sit. If you have issues with this corner, just be very careful with the cable. I've just screwed the motherboard down and it's starting to take shape. All the buttons seem to work fine. Give it another test. Yep. Just make sure that is all as flush as possible. And then we need to start on these shoulder buttons. Now I hate these shoulder buttons. They've got little springs and little rods that go through them. And then when you fix them in, which is extremely fiddly, they have to press against the actual button itself, but then there's a little piece on the board, a little gap that the other end of the spring needs to go into. It's quite fiddly, and they don't stay in there very well. So once you get them in, just be very careful not to move it too much. This is the worst part for me of doing DS Lite repairs or making macros out of DS Lites. So just make sure that the speaker is fed where it should be. I did decide to put a little bit of sticky tape just to try and hold the speaker in place. And you can put the back on. Make sure that the power button and the speaker volume button is sort of in the same place as it is on the case. I think I had an issue with one of my buttons there. And then it should all go together. Give it another test. And that is that. Now I forgot that I needed to put the hinge on. So this is my Delrin rod. It goes in one end and then it goes in the other end of the, the other hinge. So I needed to cut that down. It's just a thin black plastic rod. It fits in the left hand side very well, but it's just too thick to go in the right hand hinge. So I dremeled out, sort of hollowed it out a little bit, tried to widen it just a little bit, just so it would go in. It doesn't need to fit in very far, but as you can see, my first attempt, the rod was far too long, so I needed to cut that down, and I was going to use my Dremel again just to trim that. I didn't want to cut it too short on my first attempt, so it took a few attempts for me to get it just right. You want it enough to fit in, but not so it puts too much pressure on the hinges, otherwise they'll bow slightly, and you don't want that. I think I paid about £2 for this black rod. And then I realised that I hadn't put the right hand hinge on, and that needs to be screwed from the underneath of the, that front case in there. So I've got to take that all off again, which was annoying. And there we go, that the hinges are the shoulder buttons are gonna ping off. One did, so you got to put them back on. So annoying. They are so flimsy, and you have to be very careful because they are springs, and you can lose them. So a hinge goes there, which means I needed to lift the board again. I'm not very good at screw management. I put the wrong screw in to start with. You need the very long ones. There should be two of them, and it is quite tight, but they will go all the way in. So once you've got the hinge back on, you can then sort of rebuild what you need to rebuild. So put the board back in, fix your speaker where it should be, make sure everything is clipped in the right place, make sure that corner where that cable is down enough, screw your board down and put your shoulder buttons back in. A lovely job. and then you can put the case back on, and we'll be back to where we were a minute ago. Like I said, make sure that the volume switch and the power switch is in the right place. I'm trying to stick this speaker down because it's not going to move too much, but if there is too much movement, then it's going to rattle against the case. And I wanted the cable that goes to it, the red and black cable, to be flush. So there we go. Put the case on. Make sure your power button and your volume button are, so they've actually hit the buttons. Be careful not to nip the speaker wire. I had a bit of an issue here. It just needs to be tucked in away from that screw hole at the top there. And once you think you've got that far, then start screwing the back on, and it will put pressure on and make sure that, well, everything is as tight as it can be. The ribbon cable will then get sandwiched underneath the screen, and everything should be fine. So you put your screws back in. This is the little one above the DS slot. And it's just a case of going around and putting the screws back in where they should be. All looks good to me. One in each corner. I think there's one in the battery compartment. Yeah. And that is it. Give it another test. Yep, everything seems fine. And then we turn our attention to the screen. So you've taken the top screen apart, you've taken the digitizer off of the bottom screen, but at the minute the bottom screen just looks, well, it's got a metal border which needs sorting out. But the bottom screen on a DS is quite thick. It's got a layer, and then it's got the digitizer, and then it's got like a border around it. And this is the bit that I struggled with for a little while. So first of all, I tried to use the sticky sort of outing that came off one of the other screens, but it just didn't work very well. It wasn't very sticky in places. It looked a bit rough. It was a bit long in places, so I'm assuming this is probably from the top screen. But it wouldn't stick where I wanted it to. And the last thing I wanted is to be able to see this black rubber sort of tape when everything was put back together. So I did try. So that's stuck there, but it's only just stuck. And then you try and put like a lens on it. Make sure it's all clean. And you just pop the lens in. I mean, if it would stick, then it would be great. But I just didn't like the look of it. You could see some of the black tape. It wasn't my finest moment. So we put in the Delrin rod. It should just fit in there nicely. You might just have a bit of pressure and squeeze it in. So I am taking the screws out here. And I can't actually remember why. That means I've got to take the back case off again. I tried to hold down the shoulder buttons to make sure they didn't go anywhere, and one of them didn't. Right. This was my biggest mistake on this project, is I put the speaker holes in the wrong place on the back case, and it was a little quiet. So I took the back case off again and drilled some more holes a bit further down. It's not the prettiest, but I wanted the sound to come out properly. And this is me just trying to hold the speaker down. Some Captain tape keeps the wire in place, and a little bit of Captain tape just to keep the speaker where it should be as much as I can. So that's all that. Clean that up on the inside. And we should be ready for the back case to go back on. Again. Alright, so now it's a case of putting all the screws in. Just make sure there are no nipped wires when you're putting these in, especially along at the top there where the DS slot is. Make sure they're nice and tight because it will keep the pressure on the screen. Pop your battery back in and screw it down, and that is it. I mean, it looks pretty good. You can set your DS up. Gives you a good chance to make sure all the buttons are as responsive as they need to be. Pop a game in, make sure it works. And it does. But we still have issues with this screen lens. So I decided to take that off. I didn't like that. I'm going to just stick that on there and see if that worked. And I decided that I'd forgotten I had like a screen lens on the digitizer still. So I could just take the outside screen lens off and pop that in. It just didn't quite fit right. I'm pretty sure that should have gone under the case. Fingerprints everywhere. Trying to keep the screen as clean as possible. It was a bit of a nightmare. And you can see from this that I tried this as many different ways as possible. That looked good, but it just didn't quite sit right with me. So then we turn our attention to the stylus, which I've already cut down and used a bit of a. This is actually wood glue, but it's good, strong Gorilla wood glue. It just sticks in there just to take up that space. You don't need the stylus, so we put it in there. It's a bit messy, but it's wood glue. It will dry clear, and you can just clean it up quite easily. Put a bit of Captain tape just to keep it in place while the glue dries, and I put a little bit of. Well, I'll try to get this out of here, and put a little bit of glue on the end of the rods, just to make sure that they didn't fall out. I mean, it was a bit tight, so it wasn't going to fall out, but I just want to make it sure it was stuck. And then I have another bash at trying to sort this screen lens out, because I think I'd put a bit of pressure on it while trying to get the rod out. So a little bit of a tiny bit of wood glue in the corners, using a cocktail stick to get as thin as possible. And we pop that in, make sure it's clean. It's put down very well. Give it another clean. Didn't like that. You could see the glue and it really annoyed me. So I'll give it another go and just trying to keep this screen clean was an absolute nightmare. Then I tried to stick a second layer because the screen is quite sunken, because obviously it's got no digitizer on it, so it sinks quite into the frame of the DS, and it didn't really, I didn't really like it. It was too many scratches and scuffs on it. So off it comes again. And the bottom layer stayed in. But then I decided that I was going to take off the actual frame from the bottom screen digitizer, because I didn't need the plastic bit, the bit that's got all the fingerprints and the scratch marks on, and I popped it in there, and it looked so much nicer. Make sure it's stuck down. Took off the Captain tape, cleaned up some of the glue that was on the rod, and that is it. So that was an everything video. I mean, it wasn't a straightforward build. There was a few times where I had to take it apart again. And yeah, let's show it off. So that is Mario Kart Super Circuit, Game Boy Advance cartridge in a DS Lite, and look at the screen on that. That is amazing. It's one of the best ways to play Game Boy Advance games, actual cartridges. It's superb. Yes, you could do this on a DS Lite. You don't need to take away the top screen, but the screen was damaged anyway, so I made it into a macro. I mean, look at that. It's lovely. The screens on a DS Lite are amazing. You can hear that there is some sound. Is it all the way up? Yeah. It's not the loudest, but then you're only using one speaker. A lot of people will take the speaker from a Nintendo Switch and put it in. That gives you a bit more volume. But I don't think there's really anything wrong with the sound quality. You can hear that, no problem. So there you go. That is another Game Boy Macro, and it's absolutely superb. I love it. I put a black Delrin rod across there just to finish it off. I didn't really want to take the hinges off. I didn't want to do any case modifications on the outside, because then you've got to fill it, and you've got to sand it and probably respray it. Whereas there was nothing wrong with the casing on this, so there we go. That is my Game Boy Macro. Yet another one, and it's absolutely superb. Link, like, subscribe, enjoy.